In the early hours of a summer morning in 1993, a shocking event would grip the world and make Lorena Bobbitt a household name. In a moment of unimaginable emotion, Lorena took a knife to her husband, John Wayne Bobbitt, sparking a case that would become one of the most sensationalized and scrutinized court battles of the 1990s. But who were the Bobbitts? What led them to this explosive moment? And what was revealed in the courtroom that held the world's attention? Lorena and John Wayne Bobbitt met in 1988, a chance encounter at a club near the Marine base where John was stationed in Quantico, Virginia. Lorena, an immigrant from Ecuador, was working as a manicurist and dreamed of building a stable life in the United States. John was a young Marine with a confident smile and a charming personality. Their romance moved fast, like something out of a storybook, or so it seemed. Just 10 months after they met, Lorena and John married. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple, young, happy, and in love. But behind closed doors, the story was different. Lorena later revealed that their marriage was riddled with control, abuse, and manipulation almost from the very start. Friends and family saw smiles and affection, but inside their home, a darker reality was unfolding. According to Lorena, John was abusive, both physically and emotionally. She claimed that he would berate her, control their finances, and at times even force her into acts she wasn't comfortable with. She also testified that he was frequently unfaithful. "I tried to love him. I tried to make it work." Lorena Bobbitt. Lorena, trapped in a cycle of love and fear, hoped things would get better. But, as she later testified, the abuse only escalated, leaving her feeling helpless and isolated. By 1993, the Bobbitts' marriage had reached a breaking point. On the night of June 23rd, everything changed. According to Lorena's account, John came home after a night out drinking. In her testimony, Lorena described an assault that would be the final straw for her. Early the next morning, Lorena reached for a kitchen knife in a moment of extreme distress and pain. In an act that would shock the world, she took the knife to her sleeping husband, severing his genitals. In a state of shock, Lorena then drove off, eventually tossing the severed part out of her car window. John was rushed to the hospital, where surgeons performed an almost miraculous operation to reattach what Lorena had cut off. The media swarmed the hospital, and within hours, the Bobbitt name was front-page news around the world. Within weeks, the story escalated from a local incident to a sensational national case. Both Lorena and John faced the courts in separate trials. Lorena was charged with malicious wounding, a charge that could have put her behind bars for up to 20 years. Meanwhile, John would face his own trial on charges of marital sexual assault, a groundbreaking case in Virginia, which had only recently recognized spousal rape as a crime. In Lorena's trial, she testified to years of abuse, explaining that the act was a culmination of years of fear and pain. She claimed she suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, compounded by her experience of ongoing abuse. Her defense argued that she had acted under temporary insanity, driven by the trauma she had endured, something she claimed made her snap that night. John, on the other hand, denied all allegations of abuse. He argued that Lorena was vengeful and jealous, framing himself as the innocent party in a marriage marred by misunderstandings. However, the courtroom testimonies from both parties painted a chilling picture of a deeply troubled relationship. Segment 5. What was Lorena's motive? The defense called on psychologists who testified about Lorena's mental state. Experts spoke to her claims of battered wife syndrome, a condition often linked to repeated abuse, leading the victim to act out in extreme ways after years of suppressed trauma. They argued that Lorena's act was not premeditated or malicious. Rather, it was an act of desperation, driven by prolonged abuse and a mental break. Prosecutors, however, attempted to show that Lorena's actions were calculated. They argued that Lorena knew exactly what she was doing and wanted to punish John. But as the case wore on, it became clear that the question of motive was deeply tangled in layers of trauma and emotion. Segment 6. The verdict and its impact. After days of testimony and media frenzy, the jury deliberated. In January 1994, Lorena was found not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. This meant she would not serve prison time, though she was ordered to undergo a 45-day psychiatric evaluation. John was acquitted of the marital sexual assault charges, leaving the public with mixed feelings about justice, accountability, and the true story of what happened inside the Bobbitt marriage. The Bobbitt trial shone a light on issues that were rarely discussed in the 90s: domestic abuse, marital rape, mental health, and the consequences of sustained trauma. While Lorena walked free, the case left a profound impact on public perception, sparking debates about abuse, the criminal justice system, and even the way media shapes public opinion on such sensitive matters. Segment 7. The legacy and public reactions. In the years following the trial, both Lorena and John would attempt to rebuild their lives in different ways. John pursued a series of media stunts and eventually turned to adult entertainment, while Lorena largely stayed out of the spotlight, dedicating herself to advocating for survivors of domestic abuse. Lorena's story has evolved from a tabloid sensation to a case study on the effects of domestic abuse and the resilience of survivors. In recent years, she has spoken openly about her experiences and founded the Lorena Gallo Foundation to support victims of domestic violence, determined to make a difference out of her painful past. Segment 8. Conclusion. A case that changed the conversation. The Bobbitt case was more than a headline. It became a turning point for how we discuss abuse, mental health, and the hidden struggles of individuals in toxic relationships. Today, Lorena Bobbitt's story reminds us that behind every tabloid headline is a complex, often painful reality. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most talked about cases of the 90s. Remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What are your views on the Bobbitt case? Until next time, stay curious, stay informed,